Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Little Acts of Kindness. This will be Part 93, Chapter 93, entitled Bank Heists. Izuku looked at his team. He was with Nato, Bando, Koda, Kamakiri, and Iwaze. They were in the bank, using the information Shoji had provided them. Shoji was nearby, on lookout duty, and would be keeping a lookout for the heroes. With Ashido Yanagi and Kirishima providing a distraction, though, they should hopefully have enough time to rob the bank and get out before the heroes could come after them. He looked around, gazing coldly at the civilians. Kamakiri and Iwaze were currently breaking into the vault, while Monoma, Bando, and Koda were keeping an eye on the civilians. Izuku had no plans on killing the hostages, at least if they obeyed. These robots were useful as leverage against the heroes in case they came by. He was a bit surprised by just how well his plan was going. The heroes were down over half of their members, and Izuku still had over half of his team left. They could do this. They just had tonight and tomorrow morning left. Hearing the sound of a few small explosives, and then a loud metal clang, he glanced over, seeing the door of the vault was now on the ground, having been blasted off by a series of careful explosions. Leaving Bando and Koda to keep watch, he and Nato went to help Kamakiri and Iwaze gather up the money. Soon they'd gathered up all the money and they left, the sun setting behind them, starting to cast the city in the darkness of the night. Though the heroes have managed to get the power plant running again. "Stop, villains. You've committed crimes against the people of—" "What city is this?" Todoroki asked. Nato snorted. "Did you just try and do a meme?" Todoroki flushed a bit. "Shinzo said I should try it," he mumbled. "Get out of here," Izuku said, and his team nodded, running off. "Looks like it's me and you, Todoroki," Izuku purred out, doing his best to not stutter, to remember that people believed in him. It was surprisingly effective to remember that people believed in him. Todoroki just glared at him. "You will be brought to justice," he said, charging at him, launching ice. "Ice won't work!" Izuku screamed, voice shattering the ice before it got close to him. Todoroki swallowed, but soon a wave of fire came at him. Izuku was proud to see how far the boy had come since Hosu, but still, he couldn't let the boy take him down. Izuku activated Erasure, eyes flaring red, stopping the produced flames as he dodged the initial bit that had been sent out. He charged forward, One for All activated, eyes already starting to burn. As he got close, he punched Todoroki, who stumbled back. "Zuku!" Bakugo shouted, explosions ringing, and Izuku was sent back a couple steps as he was grabbed and then tossed away from Todoroki. Izuku blinked as he stumbled to regain his balance, looking over to see both Bakugo and Tokiyami standing there, especially as he was startled by Bakugo calling him by his old childhood nickname, before he was called Deku. This fight just got a lot harder, and he could already hear a growling, though it didn't sound like dark shadows. "Kachan," Izuku called out, making his voice sound mocking. "So good to see you," he purred, turning to the boy. "Did you miss me?" he asked, smiling, wide and toothy. "The fuck are you playing at? This isn't like you. Surrender, nerd, and I'll ask the courts to forgive you," Bakugo said. Izuku blinked, a bit surprised that Bakugo was actually somewhat acting as well. "You said it yourself when we were younger. Heroes always win, so you know you aren't going to win." Back when they were playing heroes and villains. Izuku dodged, electricity coating his body as Dark Shadow attacked him. "That was when we were playing, Kachan. This is real life, and in real life, villains win. Villains rob, kill, steal, and do whatever they want without caring about what others think. They hurt people and just laugh at their misery. They leave scars and wounds and make people remember them. I was never remembered back when we were children. Playing heroes and villains, I remember sitting to the side, deemed too fragile to play along." Izuku shouted, giving a slightly bitter laugh. "This time, I'll be remembered," using voice as well in order to get some distance. Bakugo flinched, and Izuku felt guilty for a bit of the satisfaction he felt at seeing that. He panted a bit, the attacks from the three of them hard to dodge. Soon his moment of breathing was over, though, as the three attacked again. The streets were dark, the sun having fully set. Izuku used Erasure again, holding it open as long as possible, but he couldn't keep all three of them in his sights at all times, and he felt himself being launched by an attack from Dark Shadow, and he crashed into a wall. He cried out in pain. "Surrender," Todoroki said, as the three surrounded him. Another growl happened, and then bursting out of him, causing his stomach to feel itchy and weird, was a dark green blob that grew and grew, and the growl echoed ominous down the street, before it turned into a roar. Izuku cried out in pain, clutching at his head, as he felt something almost clawing at it. "Back away!" Tokiyami yelled. "Yes, my sibling is being born, finally!" Dark Shadow crowed. "Now is not the time," Tokiyami retorted. "But sibling!" Dark Shadow whined. Izuku lost the fight against the sensation in his mind, and felt his body moving as the dragon roared, attacking the three. It was giant. "Dark Shadow!" Tokiyami scolded, throwing himself out of the way as a shadowy claw swiped where he had just been standing. The rebellious shadow itself was getting bigger as well, and the participants of the fight realized that if they didn't do something soon, they might have two out-of-control dark shadows. "Todoroki, we need light!" Bakugo snapped. Todoroki lit himself on fire, making everything brighter. The shadows shrinked a bit, though the dragon was still attacking, though it was mostly focused on the bird version of Dark Shadow who was fighting against it. Izuku was grasping and fighting against the presence in his mind, trying to gain control of his body, but more and more he seemed to be losing it. And then there was another roar, and Izuku could feel the vibrations that rattled everything, buildings crumbling as if an earthquake was happening, and Bakugo, Todoroki, and Tokiyami cried out in pain, hands over their ears. "Stop! You're hurting them!" Izuku cried out in his mind. "They hurt you!" a voice shrieked back in his mind. "This is an exercise, a school assignment. They are supposed to be fighting me," he tried to explain. "No, I have to protect you. They have to pay for attacking," it said, lashing out as it hissed angrily. Flames kept coming from Todoroki, growing bigger and bigger. "The light, it hurts! Make it stop! Make it stop!" The flames came to a halt as the dragon's green eyes changed to a bloody red. "The fucker's using Zuku's quirks," Bakugo said, rubbing at his ears. "Huh?" Todoroki asked. "Speak up, I can't hear you." Bakugo grimaced. The red eyes didn't last long, though, as the shadow shrinked a bit, and it eventually stopped, roaring at them again. Tokiyami's dark shadow reappeared with a roar of its own, and the two shadows were fighting. Izuku could slowly grasp more and more control back as he felt his new companion weakening, inexperienced and pushing itself to the limits. He could also see how none of the three were focused on him, fighting against the shadow, so he stumbled to get up as he regained enough control. He just needed them to be distracted a bit longer. He made his way to the distracted Tokiyami, pulling out a knife, and he pressed it flat against the other's neck, dragging it across, slitting the throat. Tokiyami seemed surprised, but went down. Izuku panted, exhausted, but he tugged on the weakened dragon as it was assaulted with another barrage of fire. It disappeared, and Izuku could feel it in his mind, crying for him to let it keep fighting. "No, you need to rest and regain your strength. I don't want you getting hurt," Izuku thought to the shadowy creature that resided inside of him. It whined in response, but slowly stopped fighting a bit, feeling exhausted. Izuku activated One for All and started to flee, heading toward the planned area where the rest of his team should, hopefully, have the trap fully set up. He saw Nato around the corner and knew it meant that the trap was close by. He picked up speed, rounding the corner, and then saw where Bondo was. A slight gesture showing him where the trap was, and he jumped over it, landing on the other side, and he kept running, the rest of his team disappearing. He heard footsteps behind him. A glance over his shoulder showed him that Todoroki and Bakugo had rounded the corner and were still chasing after him. Bakugo was lightly in the air, explosions keeping him flying. Soon he heard a shout, and another glance behind him showed Todoroki had become trapped, glue near impossible to see in the dark of the night. He saw Bakugo turn around, but too late, as Kamakiri held a blade to Todoroki's throat. And even as the boy lit on fire to melt the glue, Kamakiri slashed Todoroki's throat, and with that move the boy slumped to the ground, dead. Yet Kamakiri also got badly burnt, crying out in pain, and was deemed out by the teachers. Izuku let out a hopefully menacing chuckle. "Well," Looks like you're all alone now, Bakugo, he taunted. Zuku. Stop calling me that! Izuku snapped out, just like he remembered Bakugo telling him to stop calling him Kachan. You lost that right when you lifted a hand to me, when you bullied me. What? You feel bad now? You feel sad? I'm sorry, hell no, fuck that. I don't forgive you for what you did to me. Izuku lashed out, letting his pent-up feelings unleash, stomping his foot and cracking the ground from one for all, his leg throbbing in pain from the overuse. Bakugo flinched. His red eyes glanced around. We will be talking about this later, he said, but used his explosions to move away as Aizawa threw a drill-enhanced punch at him. Izuku slumped to the ground, legs giving out from underneath him in exhaustion, head pounding, and his stomach still itched. Are you all right? Nato asked, coming closer. Izuku gave a small nod. Clearly he's not. Let's get him back to the base to rest up. We need him for the final fight tomorrow morning, Aizawa replied. Koda picked him up, and Izuku passed out in the arms of his classmate. So, Dark Shadow? Cementos asked. Yup, Hisashi said. When did that happen? Cementos asked. It's been coming for a while now, I think, Nomuri answered. The two do seem fairly close, she said. Anyone else in awe that his shadow is a freaking dragon? Just me? All right, 13 said, earning a snort from Vlad. I didn't hear anyone having him go to Recovery Girl recently, Snipe said, worried. Do you think he might need to be seen? Shota frowned. Is it okay if we have her go check on him, just to see if he can still participate or if he needs to be pulled out? He asked Nezu. It wasn't really a request, though. Nezu gave a nod. Of course, he said. Recovery Girl soon left, and they asked for someone to lead her to Midoriya, given they were still hidden from the cameras. It wasn't possible to have cameras everywhere, after all, but it covered most of the city. About an hour later, Recovery Girl reported back. He's suffering from quirk exhaustion and a nasty stomachache, but he should be fine with a good night's sleep. If his stomach persists in the morning, I've told him to limit his activities in the morning, but I deem him fit to continue participating in the exams, Chio informed. Let's go, little listener, you can win this thing, Hisashi cheered. Shota sent a deadpan look at his husband. You're supposed to be unbiased. Hisashi stuck his tongue out. Please, as if you aren't rooting for Midoriya yourself. I, at least, know how to keep my biases to myself, Shota retorted. Nomuri cackled. And Sho-chan admits he's biased, she cheered. What? No, he protested. I'm just saying, if I was biased, I could hide it, but I'm not, he said. Whatever you say, Eraser, Hisashi said, grinning at him. Shota just sighed, and looked at the ceiling, in long-term suffering. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 93 of Little Acts of Kindness. We finally have Izuku developing the quirk for Dark Shadow, so I know a good bit of people were hoping for that, or were waiting for that to potentially come around, so let me know your thoughts and reactions in the comments below. Chapter 94 will be up next, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.